For the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. Sally Hundley has modeled what Jesus speaks of in today's gospel, of being great among us by serving those in her profession at the highest level of love. Sally by nature is a person of noise, whether it be in her laughter, storytelling, or teaching her middle school classroom. It was therefore profound that the most defining moment in her professional career was one of silence. Sally, from Waynesville, North Carolina, has been selected as one of the 28 top educators in America by the Walt Disney Company for creative teachers who actively engage students in America's classrooms. Unlike many teachers, however, Sally felt that she had a unique calling from the Lord to work with at-risk students. In her own words, she stated this: "Not all children like school. This is a truism that almost everyone can agree on. But regardless of the disdain for the classroom, it is always someone's job to teach them. I felt strongly that God had called me to work with children who not only did not like school, but who hated it. It was my job to figure out how to overcome with them this immense barrier." Sally had spent a full year planning how school should run for those students not succeeding. She had convinced her school principal to support a professional risk, to throw out all textbooks, teacher-made tests, and homework to meet the needs of her at-risk 8th graders. Yet there she was, fully into her first school year, experiencing overwhelming frustration. The excitement had died down, and with it came the realization that her students were not only different, they were defiant. They threatened to kill teachers, openly cursed adults in their lives, and became hostile with no explanation. The problems she was encountering were shaking the core of her beliefs that she had about students and learning, showing her how wrong she was about her planned program. With her heart and reputation on the line, she cried out one night, "God, you have placed me here, and I am failing. How do I reach these students?" The answer that Sally received came back to her in the classroom of silence, with simplicity, and it gave her peace. "You love them, Sally. You love them." In Sally's words, the answer wasn't about changing my students. It was about clearly changing my heart. Love translated into accepting students as they were at that moment in time, while simultaneously holding a vision of who they could become. Love meant facing the day with humor and patience with my students that they so desperately needed. And once that occurred, the other pieces fell into place. My conversations with God have been ones of many paradoxes that I have witnessed since becoming a teacher of non-traditional students. With love is my main goal. Students have become more disciplined, more willing to accept traditional views on school and success, and more willing to accept disappointments without hostility. At the end of the year, Sally and her students had traveled an amazing distance together. The journey, however, had one last challenge. Still facing them were the end-of-the-year tests required by the state. Her students had gained so much, but these tests were the only measure that would prove their gains to the outside world. Some of her students had previously tested much lower than grade level, even as low as first grade. The question that needed to be answered was simply, after all their hard work, would they perform as students ready to enter high school? With a twinkle of mischief in their eyes, her students came to the decision that they would happily prove their learning was where it was supposed to be on the test. They made it clear that Sally, though, had a part to play in the bargain, too. I don't know, Sally stated with a bit of fear. "I don't know, guys, if I can do that." Sally, a woman deeply committed to living for the Lord, was hesitant to take up the offer. "Come on, Miss Hundley, you have to. You just have to do it, they shouted. Her students, true to their word, outperformed her wildest expectations. Students who were chronically absent during their 9 years of school had 100% on all the state tests. They achieved the highest passing rate on the reading section in their entire school. 94% were on grade level in math, and 97% were on grade level in reading. Sally was extremely proud of them, but they had not forgotten their agreement. So what was Sally's part in the bargain? What was her part in you have to, Miss Hunley, you just have to? Sally is marked for life because of her student success. Her ankle now permanently bears a tattoo. The students chose the ink that would decorate her skin. She was fortunate that they let her choose the design. Her tattoo bridges the distance between them, and it is in the shape of a stained glass image found in many churches. The 3 points of the triangle remind her to keep faith in the work that she does, never to abandon the hope that the work she does will transform the lives of her students, her community, and herself as her vocation as a teacher. Well, what does Sally Hunley's story have to do with us as we reflect on today's gospel? Simply said, everything. Sally took Jesus' words to heart, serving as a modern-day prophet, such as Isaiah was in our first reading. In his time, by choosing to be a servant leader, that Jesus calls all of us here today in today's gospel. Her choice to love and serve a population of people who are very difficult to love and serve is a beautiful example to all of us of what true greatness really is. I know firsthand the type of students that Sally Hunley deals with, as early in my teaching career, I taught incarcerated high school boys, many of them who had committed serious felony offenses. My students' destructive behaviors at times were so overwhelming that I too cried out to the Lord, just as Sally did. What purpose do you have for me here, Lord? What purpose? No doubt for most of us, we have had our moments when we have struggled to serve those around us that are difficult to love because of their demands, whether that be the needs of our children, ailing parents, family members, or someone we know that just needs our support. Instead of asking the Lord what He wants for our lives, it's so much easier to reflect on the self-centered response of James and John when they demanded of Jesus, "We want you to do whatever we ask of you." Sally Hunley was transformed by the still voice of the Lord saying, "Sally, you love your students." Sally had a powerful impact on her students because she said yes to the word that was spoken to her. And she said yes because she had the courage. Yes, she had the courage to enter into the dialogue with God about the mission that He was calling her to be. And that was being a servant to the students that the Lord had placed in her life. A number of years ago, there was a very interesting story about the impact of being an authentic servant. Harry Hopkins was Franklin Delano Roosevelt's closest ally during much of FDR's presidency. And during World War II, when his influence with Roosevelt was at its peak, Hopkins held no official cabinet position. He was like an independent counsel. This disturbed many people, like it disturbed the 10 other disciples. And Hopkins became a major political liability to the president. A political foe once asked Roosevelt, "Why do you keep Hopkins so close to you? You surely realize that people distrust him and resent his influence." And Roosevelt replied with this, "Someday you may well be sitting here where I am, right now as the President of the United States. And when you are, you will be looking at that door over there and knowing that practically everybody that walks through it wants something out of you. You'll learn what a lonely job this is, and you will discover the need for somebody like Harry Hopkins, who asks nothing except to serve you." It is said that Winston Churchill rated Hopkins as the one of a half a dozen of the most powerful men in the world in the early 1940s. And the source of Hopkins' power, the power of his life, was his willingness to be a servant. God is also looking for people like you and me to be those whose only desire is to serve Him. So what is the mission that God is calling us to? Do we have the courage to not only listen, but to act on the mission that God has for each one of us? The answers to these questions can be found, yes again, in spending 10 minutes with God every day, listening to what He has to say to us, and then asking Him for the courage to act on it. I speak almost every homily about this because it is the most important thing that we'll ever do in our lives, to listen to the voice of God and what His direction for us is. Janet and I understand the demands that family life can bring with raising 8 children. But more importantly, we realize that the wheels can come off real quickly if we don't take time every day to be with the Lord in prayer. Well, where can we look to find our mission? I would suggest that we start by reflecting on the corporal works of mercy this week that we find in the 25th chapter of the Gospel of Matthew, and ask the Lord how He would have us respond to those things that we will be judged on. I just spoke with somebody after the 8 o'clock Mass, and they're now doing work in the prison. I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. A stranger and you welcomed me. Naked and you clothed me. Ill and you cared for me. In prison, and yes, you visited me. I am absolutely convinced, and I work with a lot of high school boys, I'm absolutely convinced that a major reason so many people, particularly men, get involved in pornography and other addictions is that they're bored for a lack of purpose and mission in their lives. I guarantee you, brothers and sisters, no one would be bored coming to jail with us to minister to the men and women who are incarcerated there. I guarantee you that no one would be bored serving meals to the least of our brothers and sisters at the Capuchin Soup Kitchen in Detroit that a very good friend of ours helps to run. I guarantee you that no one would be bored by serving on a mission trip here in the United States or abroad. The list goes on and on. What is the mission that God has for us within our families and beyond? The point of today's gospel is to transform us, to be servant leaders, in order that we may be Jesus' hands and feet in this world. St. Teresa of Avila, one of the Church's most beloved saints, wrote this beautiful reflection that really challenges us each with the Lord's words today. Whoever wishes to be great among you must be your servant. Christ has no body on earth but yours, no hands but yours, no feet but yours. Yours are the eyes, which through Christ's compassion is to look out to the earth. Yours are the feet by which He is to go about doing good. And yours are the hands by which He is to bless now. Brothers and sisters, let's make no mistake. Jesus' words today are crystal clear to all of those in our society who are impoverished, whether it be spiritually, physically, emotionally, or morally. And the question that each of us needs to answer today is this: what are we going to do about serving them?